Thanks, Miranda. For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined tonight by former New York Police Detective Tom Ruskin. Tom joins us from Newsmax, New York, and from Newsmax, Washington, my old congressional colleague, Michael Patrick Flanagan. Gentlemen, we always appreciate your time on Newsmax Prime. We should point out that late this afternoon, word came from Tulsa. It's interesting, there was a shooting in Tulsa, not any racial unrest there. But now we know that Tulsa police officer Betty Shelby, involved in that shooting of a black man, has been charged with first-degree manslaughter. Tom, your reaction to that, and why such a difference between Tulsa and Charlotte?
Well, I mean, the difference relative to the being charged is, I guess, they felt that they had enough evidence to charge the police officer with murder. And, you know, the film was disturbing. You look at that film and you say, why did she fire? Was she scared? Did she see something? That's what she's going to have to articulate in her defense. Vastly different than what we have in North Carolina and what probably happened there, what appears to have happened there. You definitely see pictures of a gun laying on the ground. And from what the police chief said, and we have to assume the police chief is telling the truth, there was no book or Bible or anything else found around that man. So if they didn't find a book, then what that girl saw is the same thing that we had in Ferguson, Missouri. Hands up, don't shoot. Didn't happen.
Michael Patrick Flanagan, let me turn to you. And before I get your comments, let's listen to the comments of another Obama administration official. That would be Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Like me, a native North Carolinian, here's what she had to say earlier today from the Department of Justice.
Now, most of the demonstrators gathered last night were exercising their constitutional and protected right to peaceful protest in order to raise issues and to create change. We need your voice. We need your passion. We need your commitment. But I urge those responsible for bringing violence to these demonstrations to stop, because you're drowning out the voices of commitment and change.
Michael, can you translate that tripe for me?
We like the protests. The rioting is good for us politically. We have to sound like we want to change, but we really don't. Did that help you any, JD?
It does. And Tom Ruskin, I could not help but note, as you heard the Attorney General, you were laughing somewhat derisively.
Well, you know, the Attorney General, I don't know where she's living, but she must be living underneath a shell. Because what I saw in that tape last night, what I saw is a reporter knocked over purposely by a demonstrator. Demonstrators trying to jump on and break into police cars. They did break into stores. They did loot. And that is not peaceful demonstration. That's not protected under our constitutional rights. What's protected is your right to demonstrate peacefully, and the police will stand across from you, and they will protect that right.
The irony of this situation, gentlemen, is we get all that Orwellian hoo-ha from the Obama administration. The most eloquent spokesman on this so far has come from the National Football League. Panthers quarterback Cam Newton, who plays his football there in Charlotte, offers this take.
I'm an African American. You know, I am not happy what or how, you know, the justice has been, you know, kind of dealt with over the years, you know, the state of oppression in our community. But we also, as Black people, have to do right by ourselves. You know, we can't be hypocrites.
And he went on to say he holds everyone accountable. Your take, Michael Patrick Flanagan.
Sounds like a right-thinking guy. When you do bad, you need to be tried and punished. When you're not doing bad, you need to have your rights protected. There's nothing complicated about it. It's good for the police. It's good for the rioters. They're not protesters. They're rioters. And it needs to be handled in a very forceful way. I'm reminded of the mayor in Stockton, California, a complete aside, but he got pied in the face by some detractor, and then he gave the guy a beatdown. What a terrific response. You know, take a little law and order into my hands here and solve it in a reasonable way and move it on quickly. Charlotte ought to take a lesson and say, we're not going to put up with this. These lines of police who get stuff thrown at us and we get abused and to protect their rights, they have no rights. They're rioting. They need to be stopped. It needs to be put down. And I think that this is not going to burn itself out quickly. I think that Charlotte's going to come to that ugly decision very quickly, and the fact that they waited is going to make it worse, not better.
Well, I want to shift the scene back to New York, since, Tom, you were on the force there. And one of the more notorious New Yorkers has found a platform on cable television. Reverend Al Sharpton was on MSNBC's Morning Joe earlier today discussing the Charlotte shooting. He says the unrest remains the result of racial and policing problems. Let's look and listen.
A lot of people are missing that we have a race problem in the country and we have a policing problem. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes they're separate. But when you're dealing with a policing problem, even black cops behave in a black community differently than they would in another community.
Precisely.
Clearly, this is the case. They would have not gone in another community, black or white cops, and did what we are seeing in Charlotte.
There's Al, Tom, trying to address the fact, and we spoke of it, everybody's been talking about it, black police chief in Charlotte, black cop, and black man who would not comply with the instructions of the black policeman. And yet we get this drivel about, the race of the cops doesn't make any difference. Black lives matter. Final 40 seconds to you.
Blue lives matter too, and the police were doing what they do every single day. They were protecting the public. They were there to serve a warrant on someone else, and for some reason, this man with a gun caught their attention, and they tried to disarm him and make sure that he wasn't there to hurt anyone else. Al Sharpton, this is the same rhetoric that I've heard for 31 years in New York City, from the Tawana Brawley case, in which he ruined people's reputation, for a woman who claimed she was raped and later on proven to be a liar. And Al Sharpton still owes money in that case. It's time for him to pay up in many different ways.
Yeah, very curious how Al Sharpton evades all of that. Gentlemen, we thank you for not evading our questions, but offering your comments. Mike from Washington and Tom from New York. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. When we continue